and they are our 2020 Journalism Award winners. First, Alison St. John. Alison's San Diego journalism career spans 3 decades. She joined the KPBS news team in 1989. She worked as a reporter for the radio, TV, and web. She's also hosted a number of shows and reported on the station's North County Bureau reporter. Alison recently announced her retirement, but I'm sure we'll still catch from time to time on KPBS, or at least I hope so. And this year, Alison received the SDPC's Lifetime Achievement Award in Journalism. Welcome, Alison.
Pleased to be here.
Next up is Maria Velasquez. Maria has more than 4 decades of communications experience. She was a TV news producer, reporter, and host. In her next role, she served as a communications specialist with the San Diego City Attorney's Office and later the Housing Commission. She's this year's recipient of the 2020 Andy Mace Award for Outstanding Contributions in Public Relations. Welcome.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
And finally, let's welcome Linda Rosas Townson, who is the publisher of 3 local community newspapers, including the Star News in Chula Vista, East County Californian, and Alpine Sun. She's worked in community publishing for 31 years. She's also on the board of Scripps Mercy Hospital in Chula Vista, where she and her therapy dog, Winnie, visit patients. Linda is the 2020 San Diego Press Club Award winner for Outstanding Media Management. And thank you for all being here tonight.
Thanks, it's an honor.
So let's start out. You have to bear with me for one moment. Let's start out with a question for all of the communication specialists on tonight's panel. I would like to know, how did your professional journey begin? What led you to a career in communications? And how did you know that communications was the field for you? Let's start with Alison.
Yes, well, I came to journalism quite late in life. I was almost 40 when I got my foot in the door with KPBS. And so my training actually is, I had a degree in psychology and was a student counselor with Rogerian theory, which all involves listening very carefully and then reflecting back. So thinking about it, that's actually a pretty good training for a journalist. But I was in a midlife crisis basically and knew that I loved to write. And so writing was my key into it. And the only course available when I went to get some further training was writing for broadcasting. That just was a complete coincidence. And that's what led me into to broadcasting. And of course, I listened to KPBS. So it was an absolute honor to be there. But I started before there was even a newsroom very much. And feel like I just got on the right ship at the right moment and have been with KPBS through its evolution, have watched really an amazing transformation in the newsroom there, from just one person ripping and reading from the teletype thing in the corner to a newsroom of over 50 people on 3 platforms. So it's really been wonderful to have this connection with KPBS and see the newsroom grow there.
Thank you. Linda, what drew you to a career in publishing? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
I have a dog, so I always have to mute myself. these home meetings. Hi, I started out in sales. I started out on the sales advertising floor at the La Jolla Light. And what I found is I was better at being a salesperson if I knew every aspect of the business, meaning I understood how the business office worked and I wanted to be friends with my business manager. And I found out that if I was friendly with my editor and understood what they did, then my job got a little easier. And same with the production crew and same with even the distribution people. And what that all how it all came together is that it brought me into a management position very quickly because I knew everyone's job. I learned everyone's job. I got to move through that very easily because I learned just a little bit about everyone's department. I pretty much have done everything in publishing except run a press and publish a news story, which I leave to the professionals, as you all know I should. So that's pretty much it.
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Maria, same question. How did your professional journey begin?
Well, as a kid, I was a bookworm, and I would go to the library and I would take like 10, 12 books home with me and then file all these book reports. And I would submit them to my teachers. And of course, they were like, okay, this is great. And then right around my 20s, I read a news article about a television station that was being, the license was being challenged. And at the time, it was known as KCST-TV. It is now known as NBC here in San Diego. And it was the Ethnic Coalition and the National Organization for Women that challenged the license transfer of KCST-TV. And reading this article, both groups wanted for the station to hire more women and more minorities. And so I wrote a letter to the general manager saying that I would love to come to work for them. And so they responded to me. And eventually, after the agreement was all negotiated, I was the first person actually hired to work at KCST-TV in the role of public affairs director. And so I spent quite a bit of time in public affairs. I must say that, and then from there, I wound up actually moving on to the news and breaking into a smaller market in San Luis Obispo. Then I came back to San Diego. Then I went to Phoenix. And then I came back to San Diego again, working for Channel 8. And I must say at the time when I returned, there were probably just a handful of reporters and public affairs people of Latino heritage. So I was at the very beginning, I guess you could say a pioneer. And
yeah.
After 2 decades in television, public affairs and news, then I moved over to public affairs or public relations role in government.
So you each have unique entries into journalism. Thank you. 2020 has been such a unique year with the pandemic, shutdowns, and so many people following social distancing orders by staying at home. Maria, how has this year changed the work that you do?
Well, let me answer it by saying that it has changed my life because it's all intertwined, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was important to understand that we are in a pandemic. That was the first thing to understand. And then from there, we knew it was going to be very different. And so it meant being more flexible and looking for opportunities that look so different. And so for me, it was having to pause and knowing that there were going to be changes. And we have seen that. And so right now I have really focused on a community collaborative project, but it really was ding, 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 things have changed. And of course, everything I'm doing right now is through technology.
So you say you're involved in a community collaborative project?
Yes, it's a multimedia online book that is called San Diego's Latino Legacy. And it's going to chronicle our roots, the civil rights movement, highlighting the Chicano movement, how communities were shaped here in San Diego in the Latino community. And it's made me, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still using my reporting skills and using my PR skills and identifying partners and working with the board. And I think I can say this now that I'm very pleased that the San Diego Union Tribune is going to be one of our major partners.
Oh, wonderful. Linda, same question. How has this past year changed your work and or your life?
So much. Am I muted? Yeah, okay, I'm good. Community newspapers are still community newspapers. Believe it or not, we're still printing newspapers, and we are doing it so differently. Technology has been here, so embracing it at a more with vigor has been the term. And we also have been playing with the term pivot a lot. So what I found with printing community newspapers, believe it or not, our return rates are about the same. So people are still picking them up, even from our racks.
Oh.
And I find that to be quite interesting considering the COVID era. You know, we did have lots of conversations about, do we pull our bulk racks, but we kept them out there and people are still picking them up. Of course, we do home delivery and we didn't cut back on any of that. And I'm talking top to bottom. My company has 18 papers. So from LA, Orange County, and then the 3 in San Diego, we're seeing the same trend of top to bottom, which is exciting. But what has changed quite a lot is how our reporters are working a community beat, which is 100% virtual. So everyone has this system, everyone has Zoom, everyone has anything we can do to get them safe. We need to keep them safe. Our production is a lot different too. We are printing newspapers, meaning that I have a full production crew that is putting out a deadline-driven product. And as much as I like having the bodies and seeing the people, we've been able to produce these papers virtually because of technology. And it was definitely a kick in my butt to move it forward and get everyone remote. And they're doing great. To my disgruntled self, they are killing it at home. And so that has definitely changed my brain to understand more. I think it also has to do with the demographic, and they're just faster. They're faster and they're fine working at home. And because we're deadline driven, as long as we're hitting our deadlines, should I mind that they're at home or they're at my office or they're at Starbucks? I shouldn't, right? So there's been some adjustments. But that being said, it's really been exciting to see that, one, we're still getting picked up. Our advertisers are definitely not where they used to be, but we're still getting picked up. Community newspapering is still getting picked up, and we're putting out our local stories. So
Linda, I'm wondering if the reason it's still getting picked up is because it's our one chance to get out of the house.
Yeah, right.
So pick it up.
Yeah. Well, that and getting your community news, which, you know, there's news deserts popping up everywhere across the country, and that's definitely the buzzword. And we're trying to keep that from happening where we produce our papers. So
thank you for that. Alison, how's the past year changed for you?
Well, it turned into an unexpected blessing for me because I spent 30 years commuting from home to work, and that was quite a long commute because I live in North County. And so once the pandemic hit, I was asked to co-host the midday radio talk show from home. So just really a blessing, because that was one of my favorite things to do, was to co-host the talk show. And it cut out an hour and a half commute from my day. So I just felt so much more relaxed about what I was doing. And of course, radio is my first love, and radio, really, it doesn't matter where you are. So the fact that I was sitting in my back bedroom and talking to these really interesting people, it just felt like a complete blessing. I couldn't have arranged it better if I'd, asked for it that way. I do think that it was more difficult I did a little bit of reporting at the beginning of the year with some of the city mayors, talking to some of the city mayors. And I mean, I didn't feel like it was a big disadvantage doing it on Zoom. For the television, you had to have the pictures too. But I think that the thing that was perhaps most challenging is not having that informal time with your colleagues. The actual reporting was not the problem. It was more the ability to chat with your colleagues, your editor, your other people in the newsroom, which is such a crucial part, I think, of the profession, and sort of hones your skills and keeps you on your toes and keeps you fresh. So that part missing, I think, is one reason why, even when the pandemic is over, cross fingers, we will probably want to be going back at least some days a week back into the office and mixing with each other.
Have you found any substitute for that, for interacting with your colleagues while you're at home?
Well, basically, if there were things that came up, I took it upon myself to call them, you know, I mean, sort of outside of work hours, just because I felt like that connection was important. You know, and things come up and there's things that you can't really deal with except one-to-one and talking. So I did quite a lot of calling, you know, the emails and texts only go so far. Basically, I mean, I do not feel like I'm missing connection at all because I'm constantly reaching out and doing that both for my friends. Now that I'm retired, I'm part of a lot of different groups. So I feel like but it does require some initiative, you know, to
Sure.
say, okay, I need to reach out now, because if you don't act, you could get very isolated.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit deeper. Each of you have had careers that have spanned decades. Can you describe some of the biggest adjustments that you've had to make to progress with your specific industries? And we'll start with Linda.
This is a great question. Today, coincidentally, we retired one of the legends of community newspapering. She has been in the production crew. She's been managing our production department and graphics department for 37 years. And we were, so 1983. And we have been reflecting a lot about her. So visualize, this was before fax machines. Pagers had just hit. When you proof an ad, we had a full-time courier that would drive twice a day, loops, to drop off proofs to clients, and they would write changes or physically, they would physically write changes on the piece of paper, and then he would loop back again and pick it up. So we had to have a full-time driver with a full-time car. Visualize that. Let's just go to the plates. We're not even direct to plate. That was 1990. We're beyond that. We go straight to press. I mean, technology. It's terrifying, but also so exciting that for 31 years, I get to see all of this. We talk to kids, or I shouldn't say kids. There's some entry-level people here and college students that don't even know what a fax machine is. They don't understand that technology, nor should they. Recently, and I'm proud to say this, we updated our how we produce our newspapers with a company. We've been using them for a long time. It's called AdForce. So we invested on our newspapers this year. I think I'm one of 8 in probably the state that actually invested in our production department. But we invested in a new software to help us paginate quicker, which ties us into our business operations, which ties us into our billing, you know, all of that. And so from me learning the business office, how she would handwrite our invoices and how we would get our commissions through what was not even Excel, I can't remember what that was, spreadsheet, to what we do now, reflecting on Shay Rogers, our production department's manager, her 37-year career in print. It's been amazing. But I do want to say that I know that print, it's not dead, but people are still feeling that it's not part of what our future is. And I'm, you know, it's hard for me to bite into that because I'm so passionate about it. But what I do see is a lot of this next generation being very excited about vinyl. Who would have thought that vinyl and records would make a comeback? Right? And we're seeing like the retro t-shirts, and all of a sudden that is cool. So I have hope, and I hope to be a driver in making print cool again. We're holding it and not being on a screen talking, but actually reading a magazine and holding a newspaper becomes something that is hip. That's my goal.
Yeah, and I know that's the case with you know, reading. It's not all on Kindle. for books.
Yeah.
And so the book industry is alive and well now too. So more power to you.
Thank you.
Alison, a dual station, KPBS with both radio and TV. I would imagine there was a learning curve along the way.
Oh my goodness, yes. And those of us in the newsroom all joined because we loved radio. So there was quite a bit of resistance. You can imagine to all of a sudden having to be on television. That was not what we had become journalists for. But most of us, I think, really discovered that adding pictures was kind of fun, and that the challenge, we rose to the challenge. So there were a lot of skills. I mean, when I think back to the beginning, it's just amazing. I feel like a dinosaur. I think I started on a typewriter, and then I got a little Mac computer. And the first 10 years, I didn't actually change the technology. I had the same tape recorder that I used for the whole time. Then the next, I actually took a little break and left after 10 years and then came back, and boom, everything had changed. It was digital. So then the next 10 years, we had digital tape recorders and digital this and that, and we started into the television, and it was a matter of learning a lot of new skills fast. And then I feel like the last 10 years, it literally was almost like a whirlwind in terms of the speed with which the technology kept changing. And I feel like the next generation of journalists are just going to have to be incredibly adaptable with technology, because it's exciting and exhilarating to find new tools to tell your story and to do your craft. But it is also quite daunting. And if you know about writing a story for a reader, it's very different from writing a story for radio, and very different for writing a story for television. So, there's different skills there, and I feel like writing is the underlying skill that you have to love if you're going to go into journalism. But then you have to learn different ways of applying those skills to the different platforms.
Yes, and now we can add social media to that. The same reporters that are out in the field, are in real time live having to report on Twitter and other, social media channels.
We used to complain that our radio stories were only 7 minutes long. Now that seems like a real luxury. Well, 30 seconds.
So true. Maria, can you describe some of the biggest adjustments that you've had to make as your career progressed?
Well, I transitioned from news to PR, and I think at times it was trying to remember what side I was on. As a former television reporter, I always expected from PR people to deliver factual information. And so I made sure that now working in the PR government, that is exactly what I would do, and steer away from really spinning things. Because in the end, when you have great reporters pursuing a story with your organization, that's not going to work. Spinning is not going to work. But there's an incident that comes to my mind when all of a sudden I had this aha moment. It was early on when I left Channel 8 in 2001 and was hired by then City Attorney Casey Gwinn. And in the first few weeks that I was working with City Attorney Casey Gwinn, and I've told this story before, but I love telling it, J. Harry Jones from the Union Tribune, and he's retired now. And I was working for Casey Gwinn. He called me up, and he's got this real deep voice. Hi, I'm J. Harry Jones. I mean, it was so frightening and so intimidating. Anyway, he said to me, I have a confidential San Diego police report, and it says that such and such person, a judge, was arrested for beating up his wife. And then he went on for about a minute saying, so in the end, what is Casey Gwinn going to do about it? Is he going to handle this and treat all alleged abusers the same? And I was thinking to myself while he was talking, oh my gosh, J. Harry Jones has a confidential San Diego police report. He must have good sources. Oh, wow. And then I thought, wait a minute. Now I'm going to have to respond to J. Harry Jones. And so I caught myself, and I asked him, how may I help you? After he finished this 2 minutes going on about what is Casey going to do. And so it just came out. I said, how may I help you? And that's really what I've always used with reporters during the time that I was in working in PR and government. So it was a transition. And again, but in terms of my job, because I knew the expectations of a reporter, I wanted to deliver the most factual information that I could to them.
Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. I just want to remind everyone that this is the San Diego Press Club's first Powerhouse Panel discussion. It's an opportunity to talk to communication experts about the changing industries, the impact of the pandemic on the field, and hopefully get some professional pointers, which we already have. We're taking questions. If you have one, please put it in the Q&A function of the webinar. And know that this session will be recorded and it's available to watch at a later date. So don't worry if you feel like you've missed anything. Maria, you were just talking to us about making that transition from TV news to public relations. You spoke a little bit about how it served you to have that news background prior to starting your public relations career. Were there any other adjustments that you had to make?
Wow, other adjustments. Well, I need to tell you that I think that I really can appreciate being on the public relations side, how challenging it can be to really communicate quickly and accurately when there's a crisis. And especially if you wind up working for someone who may think that to say nothing is the best approach, that would have been hard for me. But fortunately, and I'll use Casey Gwynn again as an example, he respected my advice. And so it was really great when you could work with people who would respect your advice. And I think I've shared this one story when the FBI raided City Hall in 2003. The mayor provided the media with a very brief interview, probably less than a minute, saying that he was not involved. And so I happened to be in the audience with the news media, and there must have been about 20 people in that room. And they turned to me and they said, somebody's got to say something. And I felt it was the right thing to do. And I acknowledged that without calling Casey. And so I said, yes, meet us over at the city attorney's office. And I was talking to Casey as I walked over, because we were in two buildings, City Hall and then the city attorney's office. And I went in and stepped in and said, Casey, we have to provide some kind of statement to the press. And he agreed. And we agreed to share whatever public information we had at the time about this FBI raid. And Casey and I quickly gathered the information. I mean, it was really quick, probably less than 30 minutes, because I was also trying to be mindful of news deadlines, but also knowing that we had a responsibility to provide the best information that we could to the public. And in the end, Casey's also felt that it was very important for us to respond, because he felt that we have to provide some kind of calm to the public, to the 10,000 employees at City Hall, and to our public, to let them know that, this is what's happening, this is what we know, and that we would have more information in the hours or days to come. So it was a good, solid decision. And so it's something that as a reporter, I probably didn't appreciate until I was on the other side and having to deal with a crisis situation. And so I really have been involved in many of them, and I still believe that the right thing to do is always to provide the information as best you can. So yeah, that was interesting to be on the other side in government relations. And as I watch what's been happening in the last few years, I'm glad I'm not working in government.
No doubt.
Stop. Do either Alison or Linda, do you have any previous professional experience that really prepared you to thrive in the communication field?
I guess I was just going to reflect a little bit on, sort of inspired by Maria's story there. This idea that people don't want to talk. I mean, I remember, it must be more than 10 years ago now, when we would have all of the Congress people come on KPBS every year and just spend an hour talking about what they thought was important, all of them, you know. And now it's very difficult to convince one party to come on to the radio. I feel like this is so detrimental. I feel like understanding each other in this country is crucial. It's going to be key to hanging together as a United States. And if some people refuse to go on certain channels, all it's doing is increasing the separation, increasing the misunderstanding, missing opportunities to get people to begin to have a little bit more of a grasp of why people believe what they believe. And so that's one of the things I really regretted in this recent political cycle, is the reluctance of certain people to come on to our air. And I mean, I'm sure it works in both directions, so I'm not blaming one side or the other anymore. But I really do think that we need to start being willing to brave media platforms that we don't necessarily think are sympathetic, because it's so important for people to get the other side of the picture, or a different facet.
Linda, did you have anything that you wanted to
I feel like I got away from the question a little bit, but I think it has to do with how we're reaching out with community and what we're seeing right now. I know that we're getting more activity, more commenting from the community more than ever, more than we've ever seen, because of all of the different ways that we can be accessed. Facebook, Twitter, also any type of social media. The part that bothers me the most, though, is when we go back and ask them, hey, this is a really cool comment. Can we print this? Only way we're going to do this or repeat it is if you give us your name, real name. And I'm going to tell you, it's probably less than 50%. So they're hiding behind it. And I find that to be both disruptive to the dynamics of what we do. If you're going to make the comment, then stand up to it, right? And so I don't know how to get around that yet. So obviously we don't reprint these comments, nor do we republish them in any way, shape, or form, unless we can confirm who the writer is or who the author is. So that's one thing that bothers me quite a lot about what this. But the cool thing is, though, we are getting more, we're accessed more, and we get them from all age demos, and we get them from other cities, countries, etc. So someone that may have went to high school in Chula Vista, who's now living in Austria, is reading us, and we get comment from them. And that's something we never could have done before.
That's incredible. Yeah, the reach. Well, a question came in for you, Linda, about a little bit about that, but the question is, community newspapers have thrived through the years better than most major newspapers. Why is that, and what is the difference?
I think that the dailies are having a harder time getting to the smaller areas. The business model isn't set up to do Little League. They're just not. And they're not set up to do the dance recital or the boys club, girls club fundraiser. And that's what community newspapers thrive. That's what we are. That's what we do. And as much as I've said this before, we want to do fireman gets cat out of tree. I'm not even joking, because if you live in a neighborhood, no one else is going to tell you about the pothole or the fireman or the dance recital. No one's going to do it. But you know what I do know? Where you live and what zip code you live in, you want to know about it. That's called pride of ownership. That's called pride of your town, not your city, not your country. We already get that. We get that everywhere. But no one is going to do that for you in your community newspaper. You can hear my passion right now, I know.
Yes.
But that's why we're still here. That because you do want to read about the fireman that got the neighbor's cat out of the tree and what happened. And it's beautiful. It really is a great story. That's why we're still here. That's why I'm committed to it. It is my goal to take us to the next decade. Come on, stay with me.
We're with you, Linda. Alison, a question came in for you that you've done so much in the communication industry. What have you enjoyed the most and why?
Oh boy. Well, the thing that really I feel so privileged about is that such interesting people are willing to open up and talk to me about so many interesting things. I mean, it's the interviewing of the people is the thing. So I just feel like I've been privileged to meet not just important people, but ordinary people who have stories. I feel like perhaps some of the most valuable reporting that I did was with Marines coming back from Iraq and having to deal with adjusting to living a normal life again. And I just felt so privileged that they were able to open up to me and share some of how difficult that was, and that I was able to tell some of those stories and help people understand why it's not easy coming home, So I would say, the privilege of being allowed into people's lives is the thing that I've enjoyed the most. Although I do have to admit that then afterwards, the writing part of it, sitting down and not having a clue necessarily how the story is going to happen, but that process of sitting down and writing and then seeing the story kind of emerge is something that leaves a tremendous sense of satisfaction when you feel like you've got it. You've grasped the thing and made a good story that people will enjoy. That is a very satisfying thing, however hard the work might be and however much stress there is in meeting all the deadlines, which there is. I think anyone going into reporting now has to be able to deal with a lot of stress.
Yeah.
But there's so much satisfaction in doing that. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you earlier, Alison, did you have to set up special equipment or anything at your home to be broadcast quality for radio?
Oh, yes. I mean, I was so impressed with the engineers at KPBS. Within a week, it seemed like they had whipped up this. It came in a great big plastic bin, a large one, but it had two computers. I had two computers, a mic, a mixer, all kinds of little boxes that did things. I mean, there were a few problems where, you didn't know if you were going to get on the air till 10 seconds before you were, but in general, it worked remarkably well. Once it was set up in my back bedroom, I was able to just do radio. So was Maureen Kavanaugh, who was hosting midday. So was Mark Sauer. We're all just sitting in our back bedrooms with a bunch of equipment, just doing it the same as if we were in a studio. And because radio is so wonderful, it's that theater of the mind thing, it really doesn't make a difference. As long as you can hear the other person and they can hear you, you're off and running.
And we love to hear your voice on the air.
It's beautiful, really.
Mm-hmm. I have another question. Let's start with Maria on this one. You're all welcome to respond to this one. What would you say to someone who would like to begin a career in communications? We have a few students that are with us tonight.
I would say know what you're passionate about, what interests you, so that you can position yourself to take on assignments, projects that deal with your passion. And I think you also need to be aware that sometimes there's whether it's PR or news, sometimes there's a termination date for you, whether it's your decision or not. And so as you continue your career, I think just knowing what your passion is can help you prepare you for the next thing that's going to happen in your life. And you can control that. You can make that happen.
Linda? Oh, Linda, you put yourself on mute.
I'm so sorry.
You're back. There you go.
There. I'd say get published. Whenever a freelance or whenever someone is saying, yeah, I'm thinking about journalism, what do you think I should do? Get published, freelance anywhere, freelance everywhere. and find your passion. So whatever it is that you're passionate about, whether it be government or whether it be music or whether it be cats, get published in that area. Get your byline known and seen. That's going to be your first step.
Is it enough to be published in your student newspaper at college, or do you have tips for how to get your first articles published in other publications?
Is it enough? I don't think it's enough. I think you got to push. You got to get yourself out there and get published by a newspaper, a magazine, something beyond that. What I see a lot is, oh, this online ... publish me. I think you got to go a little more. It has to be something more established. Something like, I don't know, a magazine that is online and in print, something more. So there's a byline that we all recognize, not just very specific to that small arena. Now, college papers are very, very good. We have a lot of people that have young journalists that have come through the college journalism programs, and they are great. But if you are really wanting to get into a field of journalism specifically, you have to move it one more step.
I would imagine a college student would have to have the courage as well to reach out. So are they reaching out to the editor of the local paper or magazine? Is that what you would suggest?
Yeah, we get a lot of them. I wouldn't say a lot. We get a handful of them, and I've received them straight out where they've just found my name on our website, and they CC'd my editor-in-chief, and they wrote it directly to me. I've seen them go into our web portals on the info. It's like, hi, I'm a student, and there are links to my stories. Would you be interested in? What I will say too is, because we are print, we have also been, we have taken some where someone said that this is my beat and I'll submit a story for free. If you like it, then we can talk about payment afterward. And so we've taken on freelancers that way, photography as well as news in government, mostly sports, et cetera. But we're scrappy. Like, we're trying to figure out ways to stay close to the ground too. And if you have a beat that we're not able to get to, we'll talk to you.
Great. Okay, those listening tonight, keep that in mind.
Albert, I know you know.
Alison, what advice do you give to students who are interested in a career in journalism?
Okay, so I mean, one of the things is that to really be familiar with the medium that you're applying for a job from. In other words, if you were to want a job at KPBS, you'd have to really know what the KPBS product is, like really be familiar with what kind of stories they're giving and even the people that are doing it. So spend a lot of time immersing yourself in that platform before you apply for anything. That's for sure true. And then, I mean, the trouble is that there are a lot of legal hurdles now to getting your foot in the door for free. I know we used to be able to take people on as interns, and that's not really possible anymore. So it's a lot more difficult to break in, certainly to KPBS, than it ever used to be. I think once you've started to get something published, and the web is your friend, because if you've got your story on the web, then someone else can quickly and easily access it and see it and read it and get a sense of, oh yeah, this person can write, or this person really presents things well, or this person's fast, or whatever. But if once you start to get things online, then you can present those to people that really need to get a measure of your work before they take you on.
Just time for a couple more questions. I don't exactly have the context for this one. Maria, you said something about a termination date, and there was a question about what you meant by a termination date.
I meant that sometimes you may want to be in this particular career, particular job, And it may be that you make the decision that you want to leave a termination date, or it's the other way around. They say, thank you for your services. So, that's why I say you have to have the passion. You have to know what it is and that will help you lead you to the next thing that you want to do with your career. I also want to add that I think that getting involved in the community is also very important from the PR. I mean, getting involved with groups, volunteering, understanding how their organization works, if they're having events, it's all PR and it's all networking. I might also like to add that during this pandemic, I've done so much more networking than I've ever done when I was working full time, because you have that opportunity to do more of that. So anyway, so I would, to any individual starting off, connect with an organization that you like, that you have a passion for. It doesn't have to be an organization. It could be something else. Well, I know Alison is saying that I think you were talking about internships, but explore internships also.
I think this will be our last question of the evening. This is Dina Robinson's on here, and she's a veteran journalist. She says, as a quote unquote vintage journalist who started on my passion, radio, just like Alison, evolved to war correspondent, travel journalist, investigative journalist. Anyway, she's got expansive background, and she hasn't been able to get accepted as a freelance writer by a wide variety of publications. So she wants to know how to overcome this obstacle.
Wow, that's a tough one, isn't it? Yeah, getting your foot in the door when you already have a lot of experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. The challenge, it really is a bit of a conundrum for those of you that have been doing this for a long time, is that the pay structure has changed quite a lot. And I think that where we entered, we were here, and then there was this thing where it was amazing, and then it's come down. So those of us that started 30, 40 years ago in this industry, we have more experience and talent, but what's happened is it's been inundated because there's so many different ways, as both Maria and Alison had said, like the web is your friend. And so all of these people are able to write from anywhere at all places. And so it's just got more crowded. It's more difficult to get the gig. And then you have several people coming from all different areas and all different arenas that are able to access that same site or magazine or publication, and they're submitting right along with you. So it's just got a little more difficult. And because of that, and supply and demand, the cost that a newspaper or a publication has to pay is, in my opinion, gone down, which of course, as a publisher, that's great for me. As a vintage journalist, that's not great for you. And there's the big conundrum. So I think it's taking a look at, number one, what it is specifically, the area that you want to be in. And number two is just finding out if it's going to be worth it for you. Is it because you love it and you still find it to be, journalism is a dying art. It's an art. And so as an artist, can you bear it and take a little bit less? Because if you can, then I think the gig is there. And I think that's a reality. And I hate to tell you that, or any of you young journalists coming in, but I believe this is a reality. And I don't know how to say it differently.
Thank you for the open answer. I appreciate that. I'm going to sneak in one more question. And so just some brief answers so we can wrap up on time. But you all have won the 2020 Special Awards. And we want to know how it feels to be recognized for your contributions to the field and how you've kept your skills sharp.
Well, I got to say, just to start, that I really feel like I have to give a lot of the credit to KPBS. I mean, I just am so grateful that I got on board this train, when I did, and it's turned into such a wonderful train. And I just love KPBS, and so many people do. that you know, the fact that I was able to ride that train is kind of part of why I think I got this award, and I want to thank KPBS for giving me that opportunity, you know, to tell stories on it. But beyond that, it's really been heartwarming. I can't tell you how, having taken a step back, because I officially retired 2 years ago, and then came back as a reporter, and then came back as a talk show host, to have this happen after I'd really thought I'd finished my career felt really fabulous. So I'm very grateful, and I really want you to know that.
Congratulations. Linda?
I have met several of the Jim Reiman recipients, and I always looked at them as big mentors and just like legends in the media industry. And it actually, the initial reaction was, I don't belong here. What? I'm no, I don't belong here. So it was an honor, and it was a surprise. As I've stepped back, what I realized is the reason why I'm here is because of the new word pivot. Because I keep pivoting, because I'm scrappy, because my team will scrap with me. That's why we're still printing newspapers. I'm printing newspapers. And so I'm hopeful that, well, I'm grateful. And it's because of them that continue to play this game with me that we can do this for the next decade.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Maria?
And I was surprised when I got the email from Kathy Diamond, former colleague of mine, and thank Lynn Stead for actually nominating me too. And I was deeply humbled by the San Diego Press Club for this very prestigious award. And it really turned out to be the first PR award in government relations, which is a hard thing to do because it's not a really sexy job. It really isn't. And you're dealing with sometimes very mundane issues, but important issues for the community. So very humbled, and I cherish it forever.
Same.
Well, congratulations to all of you. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I also want to thank our event sponsors, Scatena Daniels Communications, a woman-owned communications firm led by San Diego Press Club members Denise Scatena and Erica Daniels. Thank you for supporting the mission of the San Diego Press Club. Thank you to our panelists. A reminder you can connect with the panelists and the event attendees on LinkedIn. And for more of these discussions, career building events, community service, you can go to the San Diego Press Club's website or social media accounts to find more information about becoming a member of the San Diego Press Club. A reminder that new members who join, I sound like I'm doing a KPBS spot, don't I? New members who join before March 14th receive an extension on their membership through June 2022. Check out the website for details. This recording will be posted on the San Diego Press Club website very soon. And thank you all for coming.
Good job, Eileen.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.